Hello, Cumberland County Schools families. We are so glad to have you with us as we prepare for Reentry Plan B for Cumberland County Schools, scheduled to begin on March 15th, 2021. We have provided for you a series of videos to help you prepare for your child to return to school on March the 15th. We hope that these videos are helpful and provide you with some much needed information. Again, thank you families for all you've done as we begin to transition into Plan B reentry for Cumberland County Schools. Have a wonderful day. Hello, we have with us today Shirley Bolden, who is our Director of Health Services. Thank you so much, Shirley, for joining us as we are preparing for reentry back into schools, into our Plan B. So we just want to kind of discuss some of the things that parents and families can prepare for, know about as we are in new territory here in Cumberland County. So as you can imagine, the topic is probably around most people's dinner table right now, specifically in Cumberland County, about reentry. What has the district done, or what is the district doing to keep our students and our staff safe as we transition to Plan B?
Thank you for asking that. We have been working really hard. One of the first things we'll talk about is promoting healthy behaviors that reduce COVID-19 spread. Another thing we're doing is we're maintaining healthy environments. So we're making sure that the environment that students and staff are going to enter is safe. We're also maintaining healthy operations. Now, we're prepared also for when someone gets sick, because we know that, in a pandemic, we are going to have people get sick. So we also have quarantine and isolation procedures available and ready to go on March 15th.
Thank you. You all have been preparing for this for a period of time. So even though we didn't quite know what date it was going to be, you all have put in a lot of work in preparing. So what happens? Like you said, we're in a pandemic, so there is the possibility that someone will get sick, whether it's a student or a staff member. What are the safety procedures that are in place in case that happens?
Well, if a teacher, the teacher or staff is going to excuse the student from the classroom, the cohort, and notify the medication clerk. After that, the medication clerk or the designee is going to take the student to the designated isolation room until transportation can be arranged for the child to be sent home, or if necessary, to seek medical care. Then parents are going to be notified in that same process, and then employees who are present with COVID-19 symptoms will be excluded from work immediately. And of course, if they're not well enough to drive home, we'll also make arrangements for their safe exit from the building.
Okay, so there's a process and a plan for if the possibility is that a staff member gets sick or if a student gets sick. Now, I know you all have like an isolation room. What does that look like? Is that something that is in every building? And will a student stay there for the day, or how is the isolation room kind of set?
Okay, every school will have at least one isolation room. We're hoping to have backup isolation rooms and not need them. in the hopes that we don't have that many kids who are not well at school. In the isolation room, there will be one staff member permitted to that room, and that person will be wearing a full PPE, which is a face shield, a mask, a face covering, and a gown. And what they will monitor the student from 6 feet. But of course, if that child needs hands-on care, we're going to make sure that we give that child care and until that child can go home. The isolation room will also be socially distanced. So we'll have 6 feet, we'll have constant cleaning in that area throughout the day and making sure that we're monitoring those students and also making sure that all safety protocols are followed as far as hand washing, removal of gloves, and providing kids what they need. If a kid is not well enough in that particular room to wear their face covering, we will make accommodations for that as well.
Okay. So we kind of started talking about once the student is in the building, but we know there's a little bit of work before they get into the building with the attestation form. So what do parents have to do with that form and where do they access it?
Okay, we have a web-based survey tool called Qualtrics that we've introduced to parents on our webpage, and it's a screening tool. So on that screening tool, the very first time a parent goes on to access Qualtrics, they will complete the attestation form. On that attestation form, the parent is committing to not send their child to school if they've been exposed to someone with COVID-19, if they've been quarantined by their physician, the Office of Health Services, or the health department. And they will also not send their child to school if that child has had a loss of taste or smell, if that child has had a fever, if the child is having shortness of breath, chills, or a new cough. So that's what the parent commits. I'm not going to send that child to school, and I'm not going to send that child to board a bus.
Okay, so as a Cumberland County Schools employee, we've had access to the Qualtrics survey prior to the start of the students going to school, and we complete that survey every morning, and that basically gives us access to going to work that day. So this is the same concept for the students. They'll complete this form basically saying that they're okay, but then when they get to the building, they still have a temperature check screening, correct?
That is correct. We will have screeners at every building, and the screeners will have a dashboard, and that will be an electronic dashboard, and they'll be able to look and see if the child has passed the screening to have the approved to attend school. After they verify that, they will check their temperature, and then from there, they will proceed in the building.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us. I think that's key to parents knowing, okay, there's some steps before we get into the school. We have to do this and that, but it's for the safety of the students and the staff. So we want to make sure everyone is safe. Can you tell us where families can find the information about health and safety protocols?
Yes, it is all on the CCS Reentry portal. What you will find there as it relates to parent information, it's called the Cumberland County Schools COVID-19 Family Guidance for a Healthy Return. Now, in that guidance, you're going to find topics such as face coverings, social distancing, respiratory etiquette. You know, there are tons of information there. So we encourage parents to go take a look and see what all is there. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with the amount of information that will help you feel better about your child's transition to Plan B.
Thank you. And we know that you have been working diligently. You and your team have been working throughout this process to get us safely back into the building for Plan B and eventually to Plan A. Are there any things or any final thoughts that you want to provide to our families as we prepare for the reentry transition?
Yes, I'd like to talk a little bit about our exclusion of household members. With that exclusion of household members, all members of a symptomatic individual's household who are affiliated with the school system will have to be dismissed from school. That could be the sibling, that can be the roommate, that can be the parent who's a teacher, the parent who's a principal. If that child presents or that person presents with COVID-19 symptoms, everyone in that household will be excluded because they are contacts to a potential COVID-19 case. Now, you might say, well, how long do we have to stay home? You will stay home until that child gets, or the person, could be the adult, gets a negative COVID-19 test or an alternate diagnosis from your family physician.
Okay.
And we also want you to be mindful that if you're not sure if your child usually gets allergies this time of year, we want you to err on the side of caution and allow your child to have a remote learning day that day until you can follow up with your primary care provider, just in an effort to help us keep a healthy environment.
Thank you. You shared some very important information with us as we've been preparing for this period of reentry. We want to make sure that our students and our families and our staff can all be safe. And we appreciate your hard work over this time and the continued work that you and your team will put in to make sure that we remain safe. And families, please make sure that you go to the website, look into this information, find out what you need, and prepare for the reentry with your mask, washing your hands, and staying 6 feet apart. Thank you, Ms. Bolden, for joining us today. We are always appreciative of having you and your expertise in dealing with COVID-19 as we prepare to go back into our school buildings. So thank you again. Thank you, families, for joining us, and have a wonderful day. Hello, and thank you for joining us for a special session of Coffee Conversations as we prepare for re-entry into Plan B, blended instruction on March 15th. We have with us today some of our CCS leadership to speak with us about some of our COVID-19 precautions and plans to help keep our students and our staff safe. So today we have Diane Grumlaw, our executive director of transportation. We have with us Donna Fields, our executive director of operations. And we have with us Beth Maynard, who is our executive director of child nutrition services. So thank you, ladies, for joining us today. You all play major roles prior to COVID and as we plan to transition back into school. And you have been very busy with your team. So thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Diane, let's go ahead and start with you in transportation. What are some of those changes that will be taking place in reference to bus transportation due to COVID-19?
The biggest change is that only 24 students can be on a bus. So it's one student per seat. And in the past, we have anywhere from 48 to 72 students on a bus. So that's the driving force because we have so few students allowed on the bus. Now, siblings can sit together, so that does add a few more seats. But other than that, the number is 24, one per seat. Mm-hmm. The other thing would be that wearing the mask. The children will have to wear masks on the bus also. So it's same as in the classroom, they'll have to have them on the bus.
So if people have moved, we know we have community where families move at different times throughout the year. If families have moved in the last 2 months since the holiday break, what is the process for providing that information for their child to receive transportation for Plan B?
All our bus information comes from the school. So we pull what's in Power School, and that's how we do our routes. But all of the information we have pulled and are making our routes with was all the changes as of January 31st. So any changes made in February, the school needs to just be keeping a list of those. And as we see openings on the buses, then we'll be able to add those children. As I said earlier, our problem is just with 24 students, it really limits our seats. But that was the reason for doing the cohort A's and cohort B's also, so that you're only taking in half of the students. So as long as if somebody moved within the same area, they may even be on the same bus, so that wouldn't hurt anything. But if they've moved across town, then they'll just have to wait and see what openings are available.
Okay. Okay, that's very important for our students as far as if they're going to use bus transportation, they may have parents or family members or other people dropping them off. But for our students that ride the bus, be prepared. Make sure your address is updated with your school
Right.
so that the transportation team can get the students on the bus and have the numbers correct for safety purposes. So on to our next question. So Donna, in operations, that your team is busy, busy, busy.
Busy, busy.
Busy, busy. So what are some of the key changes that will be noticed inside of the school building under Plan B?
So I think the first change you'll see is that the arrival and dismissal will be a little different. There'll be screenings and temperature checks for anyone entering the building. They'll see new signage that's related to COVID-19. Most of it is going to be to remind folks to stay socially distanced, to continuously wear their mask, and to practice good hand hygiene. There'll be signs on the water fountains instructing folks not to drink directly from the water fountains, but they can use it as a cup filling or a bottle filling station. They may see directional arrows on the floors or on the walls to try to get the kids and folks in the building to walk either down a hall one direction or on the side of a hall, one direction one way on one side, the other direction the other way on the other side. They'll see red dots on the floors, and that's to remind us again that we need to stay socially distanced, especially where we tend to congregate or lines tend to form. They'll see hand sanitizing stations at the entrances and exits, as well as bottles of hand sanitizer in the classroom. A big thing is they'll notice everybody's wearing masks. Then, there's just some things that we're doing throughout the building that look a little bit different to us as operations, like more frequent filter changing, more preventive maintenance on our HVAC systems. The custodians will be doing a little extra cleaning throughout the day and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So in the building during the school day, the students will have on their masks. The floor will be marked, socially distanced. They're going to be in the classrooms. But what types of things will be happening with custodial staff while students are in their classroom? What things, what kind of cleaning will take place in order to support COVID-19 measures?
Well, during this time, it's everybody's job to make sure that the building is, staying clean and disinfecting the high touch areas and stuff like that. So we've devised a plan where custodians will be focusing more on the general building, hallways, gang bathrooms, just office areas, entry areas, stuff like that. And teachers will be concentrating more on their in-classroom areas, like their shared materials, light switches and doorknobs. So what we're going to be doing is our custodial department will pretty much be performing their routine building cleaning, but they will also focus on hitting those frequently high-touched areas throughout the day. Every couple of hours, they'll go and hit all the doorknobs. They'll go and hit the bathrooms. So you'll see a lot more of that. They're also going to be doing a daily cleaning of the high-touch areas on the stationary playground units and things like that. So it's not like you have to go deep clean the building every 2 hours. But they do need to, those areas that people tend to touch more frequently, disinfect those more frequently.
And then just another piece to it is on Wednesdays, one is out of the building. That's going to be a major cleaning day, right?
Right. It is. It's going to be, there'll be a lot of things going on Wednesdays. They'll be doing a little bit more thorough, in-depth cleaning. They'll clean the playground equipment a little more thoroughly, but also you're going to see a lot of folks, when weather permits, taking care of the outside of the building, because we're trying to focus all of that work on the inside of the building more frequently throughout the day, Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. So, that we're relieving that, requirement to constantly keep the yard up every day. So they'll have that Wednesday also to catch up with their yard work.
Good. Good. And we appreciate your team, of course, keeping us safe. And you all have been planning and preparing for months and months now.
Yes.
With getting those things to us. So thank you so much for that information.
Absolutely.
So Beth, your team has been key during this time in feeding our children, even in remote learning. So you all have provided breakfast and lunch throughout the entire pandemic. And our families are still very much dependent on that. So how or what changes will take place as far as meals are concerned when we start Plan B?
Well, first I want to address those meal sites, those daily meal sites that we've been operating since day one of the pandemic last year. Currently, we have 19 sites open. We are planning on having 19 sites available after we start Plan B. However, a few of them are going to change as we transition to Plan B. And a list of those will be available on the Cumberland County Schools webpage, along with the lunch service times may vary just a little bit depending on the individual school's lunch schedule for the students in the building. So that information will also be included on the webpage and available for parents. We're going to continue our frozen meal bundle program. So for those parents that find that more convenient, that'll continue to be available. And a very key piece of information related to the meal service is it continues to be available for all children ages 18 and younger. We will not discontinue service to non-Cumberland County School students. So we will continue. You don't have to be a Cumberland County School student. As long as you're 18 years and younger, you can participate in those meal sites and the 5-day bundle program. So we're very pleased about that, to be able to serve those younger siblings and students that continue to homeschool, as well as our remote learners that are enrolled with Cumberland County Schools. We're happy about that. For our in-school service, we have varied our lunch service to accommodate social distancing and trying to minimize the contact between children in different classes. So we have made available 3 different service models to the schools, and our cafeterias have worked with the school administration to decide which model is best for their particular school and their students. And in some cases, it may vary by grade. So one of the models would be where the children come down to the cafeteria one class at a time and go through the serving lines and pick up their meals. Now, in the past, we've offered some self-service where they get to select their own meal. They get to select which fruit off of a tray. We're discontinuing that because we don't want children to touch another child's products. So all items will be placed on the child's tray by a staff member wearing gloves and following our strict safe food handling protocols that we've had in place for decades, as well as adding some additional components recommended by the CDC. So they'll be serving the children. The children will not have to key in their numbers, ID numbers, like they've had to do in the past, because USDA has gracefully allowed us to offer free meals to children for the remainder of the school year. So we do not need their ID numbers, and under the particular program that USDA is allowing us to operate right now. So that will prevent them from having a common touch keypad. If they do want to purchase an additional snack item or an additional item, our cashiers can look their number up so they can use their prepaid account, again, without touching anything. So they will then take their meal back to their classroom and they will consume it in the classroom. Another model would be where they actually sit down and eat in the dining room, and that would be based on the principal will analyze how much space is available in the dining room and to ensure that they socially distance. And our final model for lunch would be where lunch is actually served in the classroom. In that particular case, we will give the teachers an order form so that they will ask the children which lunch entree they want. They will submit the children's lunch orders to the cafeteria. The cafeteria will package the meals as individual whole meals, and it will go down to the classroom where it will be passed out to the students. Each meal will be marked on the outside to indicate what entree is inside that lunch, so that the teacher should not open that meal to see what's in there. They should just be able to hand it to the child, and the child will be able to be the first one to open that meal and consume it. Teachers will have their own cleaning supplies in each classroom provided by our operations department, and so they will be able to disinfect the surfaces before and after the children eat, and we will come around and work with custodial services to collect the trash. But we hope that one of these models works for every school, and we're quite confident that it'll help keep the children safe.
Thank you. So all three of you have shared key information. Diane has helped us get to school with our transportation. Donna and her team have made sure the school is set up for us to have proper social distancing, wearing our mask, hand sanitizer. And then Beth and her team make sure that our students are still able to receive breakfast and lunch while they're at school during the Plan B learning that takes place starting March 15th. So we appreciate all three of you and your teams and your hard work that you've put forward into getting us to this point in the next few days. So we will have our students back in the building. Is there any other additional information that you would like to share with families regarding school reentry?
I'd just like to say that, I just hope that families feel confident and that the building is safe to enter, and that, kids are going to really benefit from coming back face to face. It's been a very difficult time for many children to learn in the virtual model. And that's why we've worked so hard to, make sure the kids are going to get fed in a safe way, make sure that they're going to be able to get back and forth to school in a safe way, and to make sure that while they're here at the schools, we're doing everything we can to make it as safe as possible. And I hope that parents will feel some comfort in that and sending their kids back to school.
I'd like to also mention that I'm very confident in my staff being back in the school with the students, and we're so much looking forward to having the students back. We very much miss them. We've loved it whenever the students have come through the car lines at our meal sites. It excites our staff, so we're so excited to have them back. And I should also mention that breakfast will be available for our students every morning. After their screening point, as they enter the building, we will be right there to hand them a breakfast. Many of our families do continue to struggle financially moving forward, so we hope that they will continue to participate in our meal program, while USDA is sponsoring all of it to be free. That's a wonderful benefit, and we hope they'll continue to participate in that. And we welcome them back.
And the buses are also ready for everybody to come back. We've run about 80 buses during the pandemic and had Wi-Fi buses out there. So we've had a few on the roads, as well as with the food program. Our routes are being delivered to the schools now and sent electronically. So all the routes and Rosters are being delivered, as I said, to the schools now, so students will have an opportunity to know where their bus stop will be and at what time. So the schools will have those to let folks know over the next week. And we look forward to having everybody back too.
Thank you. Again, thank you all for being with us today and sharing. Thank you, families, for tuning in. Please check out the website, as mentioned, for additional information. And we hope that this helps you in planning your transition back to Plan B for Cumberland County Schools. Thank you all for joining us and have a wonderful day.
Thank
Thank
you.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for our Coffee Conversations Reentry segment. It's our goal to provide our Cumberland County Schools families with much needed information as we prepare for reentry into blended learning, scheduled to begin on March the 15th. Today we have with us Dr. Stacy Wilson Norman, our Cumberland County Schools Chief Academic Officer. We also have with us Malata Hill, our Assistant Superintendent of Elementary Instruction, Jane Fields, our Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, and Kevin Coleman, our Executive Director of Technology. Thank you so much for joining us and giving us some valuable information that we need as we prepare for re-entry into Plan B, scheduled for March 15th. So let's go ahead and get started. Can you explain what will happen in Plan B for students' learning options? And what will be the difference between remote learning days and virtual learning days?
Certainly, I'm glad to answer that for you, Wakinia. We are very excited to welcome our students back, that all students will receive 4 days of live instruction and 1 day of independent learning weekly. All students will stay connected to their currently assigned homeroom teacher as much as possible, and all students will participate in 1 day of remote independent learning weekly. Each school's in-person and virtual learning schedules will match for consistency as much as possible. That when we think about the blended learning model that our students will experience as they return, they will either be in person, students will attend schools in an assigned cohort, or virtual learning, students will remain home and engage in learning with live instruction virtually, or that 1 day of independent remote learning that all students will engage in, which means no live instruction will be available on these days, but students will still continue to work independently through Canvas. So that is what our students and families can expect as we transition to Plan B.
Okay, so that's definitely a valuable information in providing us with the different options. So how do the cohorts work? How do families know which cohort their child is in?
Wakinia, thank you for asking that question. When we examine our traditional and our early college reentry, those students who are following those schedules will come back on March the 15th, Monday, March the 15th. For those families who selected in-person learning, we will begin an A-B cohort rotation. Now let me explain that cohort. Students in cohort A, if they selected and the school assigned them cohort A, they will attend in-person learning on the days of the week, Monday and Tuesday. Students that have been assigned cohort B will attend in-person learning at their schools on Thursdays and Fridays. Please know that if you are a bus rider, you may ride the bus on your assigned day for your cohort. And we are asking for all students to make sure they have on a mask when they get on the bus. Please know for our EC separate and pre-K students, they will begin daily instruction every day of those 4 days of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. As Dr. Wilson Norman just shared, Wednesday will be our designated independent remote learning day for all students, and there will be no live instruction. So please know that we are excited about having our students back for in-person learning, blended learning, and also the virtual learning.
So thank you for sharing that information, Dr. Hill. So explain a little bit of how the cohorts work and how will families know what cohort their child is in?
So each school has already determined which cohort, and they will communicate that to their families. And Joaquin, if I may also add, for our year-round students, their reentry date will be on April the 12th for Plan B.
Okay. So families definitely have to make sure they contact their schools to know what cohort they're in. That is valuable. So you won't put your baby at the bus stop and it's not your baby's day to be at the bus stop. So during the virtual learning days, will students be able to watch the live lessons being taught to the students in the classroom? How will that look for students?
Students at home will be able to log in, and there will be cameras and microphones set up in the classroom so that as the teacher provides direct instruction to students in the classroom, the students at home will get that same live instruction. Although they're not physically in the classroom, we're going to still continue to utilize WebEx as our platform that they would log in to their teacher, just as they have been doing during this virtual learning time. And we'll also use Canvas, continue to use Canvas as our learning platform that assignments are given and submitted from students at home. So our goal is to make it as organic as possible. Although half of our students are at home, we want to bring them in virtually into the classroom so that we could have the half that are at school have the same opportunities as the ones that are at home. Even though they're not in the same physical location, they will still be able to see that direct instruction. And I also want to mention that the teacher will have direct contact with the students at home. So if the student at home raises their hand, they'll be able to answer questions just like kids at school.
Okay. So this is kind of a loaded question. It can go so many different ways, but families really would like to know what are the changes that they can expect from the academic perspective as we transition into Plan B.
Joaquin, I can speak to one change, and that is in regard to the schedule that students will be following. As you know, for the past year, we have been under Plan C, in which students have been learning virtually from home. As we transition to Plan B, schools are going to resume their normal daily schedules. Students that are attending in person, and as Kevin said, those learning virtual at home are going to follow the same identical schedule, which is the school's daily schedule. Those schedules are housed on each individual school's website so that parents know the start and end times for school, and students will know the duration of each class period as they follow their daily schedule. So one change is the amount of time that parents may notice that their students are spending in one class while they're logged in virtually from home. It is going to be longer than what they have experienced in Plan C.
Okay. So we have students that are going to be in the classroom. We have students that will be home watching the students in the classroom. Those are going to be drastic changes from our Plan C, where all students were virtual. So technology. Mr. Coleman,
Yes,
can we toss our computers yet? Or how do we need to have our computers for Plan B?
Absolutely not. We are not going to toss them. We are going to continue to use them, and we're going to utilize those digital tools that we put in place during this virtual learning time. That's been the portal in from a student into their teacher. It's the same thing when you're at home now. Obviously, the portal will be into the classroom where that teacher will be interacting with students that are physically in their classroom, but also not just watching what goes on in the classroom, but also interacting with what's going on in the classroom. And that we have some of the best, we have the best teachers in the world that are creative in their instruction, and they'll be able to put those two groups together. But while you're at school, you also need to bring your laptop. Students that come to school need to bring their laptop to school each day, because it's not just a portal into the classroom where they can see. It's also a valuable tool to utilize digital tools and really communication with our learning platform. We have so many digital tools that help teachers grow students and students grow themselves, that we want to continue to take advantage of the Chromebooks that they have in place. So we're asking that students bring their laptops when they come to school, when their cohort is to come to school, with a full charge. And we ask that you plug it in at night and bring it with a full charge, ready to learn the next day.
Okay, thank you. Any other information you all would like to share? We know you all have been working hard. Dr. Stacy Wilson Norman, our Chief Academic Officer, and her team have been working diligently throughout this process to make sure that our students are ready to come back in the building on March 15th. So we're excited about having this team of our Cumberland County Schools experts in the room with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, families, for joining us. We hope that we've shared some vital information that will be able to help you as you prepare to transition. We're still wearing masks, we're still washing our hands, and we're still staying 6 feet apart, but Cumberland County Schools has a plan for reentry starting on March the 15th. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful day.